All right. As RWL Southwest continues Legends Division competition, next is George the Animal Steele, set to compete against Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Hey, all right, the master of the figure four leg lock in action tonight.
This next Legends match, one fall, with a 10-minute time limit, coming down the aisle along with manager, the Hollywood fashion plate, classy Freddie Blassie, from Detroit, Michigan, weighing in at 303 pounds, George, the Animal, Steele.
The kid's good. Where'd you find him?
Christopher, well, he works for the company anyway, so I happened to hear him and he has a terrific presence, so I said, yes, we needed a ring announcer, and so here we are. Everything that's happening tonight is because of me, Danny. The reason you and I are working tonight is because of me.
Yeah, well, you've done a terrific job. All right, George the Animal Steele, set to go up one-on-one against Greg the Hammer Valentine, and that's going to be a pretty good Legends Division match anywhere you go.
As the Stones to start the show with Scott Bell presents, it's me who did this.
His opponent from Seattle, Washington, weighing in at 260 pounds, Greg the Hammer Valentine.
You know, it's been a pretty long time since anybody's seen Greg the Hammer Valentine, even in the northeastern region.
And we were lucky to get him, Danny. Greg Valentine, is always on the road, always traveling, and happened to owe me a favor, and well, here he is tonight, facing George the Animal Steele. And I think he's going to win.
The Animal may be strong, but Greg the Hammer Valentine can think circles around that guy.
You know, one thing we're going to see for sure is a bunch of turnbuckles destroyed.
Yes, sir, George the Animal Steele and his turnbuckle fetish. That's unexplained.
And you know, Danny, I think it's been a terrific card so far, old man. And there's still so much more to come. Big Jake Blackwell, the international champion, coming along soon.
Yeah, that's right, facing X-Pac. That's a little bit later on. There's your bell. Greg Valentine, George the Animal Steele putting on the brakes for Greg Valentine right away. And he's got Greg the Hammer Valentine. Well, there's a counter with a back body drop. Greg Valentine misses with a kick. George Steele whips him to the ropes, ducks under. Valentine, an Animal countering, but there's a clothesline that takes the Hammer out onto the floor. And here comes George the Animal Steele right after him. Greg Valentine finding himself in trouble right away. In its early days, yes. And George the Animal Steele is extremely aggressive, particularly on the outside of the ring. Greg the Hammer Valentine about to meet the ring steps head first, and that's not the way you're supposed to use them. Greg Valentine back inside the ring. George the Animal Steele with an uppercut. And Greg Valentine winds right back up outside. Boy, that George the Animal Steele, what a space case. I'd like to baptize that guy in a bathtub full of nair.
You know, there's been an awful lot going on in RWL, Danny. And most controversial of all is the Hell in a Cell match between Jody Vorek and Liberty Bell Danielle Heathcote.
Correct as usual, Gene. We're going to have a progress report on both combatants a little bit later on. Meanwhile, Greg the Hammer Valentine going to work on the legs of George the Animal Steele, telling he's going to soften him up for the figure four leg lock.
Classy Freddie Blassie. What an act. He is really a great manager. He doesn't seem as great as he once was, especially in light of the managers we have around here now. But he's still one of the greatest.
Losing Warlord Santos really hurt him. Valentine powering out of the pin before even a one. George Animal Steele stomped the head of Greg Valentine. Now driving elbows into his shoulder. Valentine counters, stands himself back up. The Animal with a quick jab to the head of Valentine. Valentine whipped to the ropes, another elbow to the head for Greg the Hammer Valentine. And again, George the Animal Steele just can't leave that turnbuckle alone, can he?
I believe it's called monomania in psychological terms. Denny. Up on the shoulders, Greg Valentine. Escaping that shoulder situation. Got George the Animal Steele up. Hangs him off the top rope.
Valentine going for the cover. Again, the referee distracted by the turnbuckle. And we only get a 1 here. George the Animal Steele catching the business from Valentine, but now stands himself back up. Now it's Greg Valentine on the mat. A leg snap from George the Animal Steele. Greg Valentine countering. Pretty good hip toss from George the Animal Steele. There we go. Greg Valentine says, I've had just about enough of your nonsense. Oh, here we go. Look at this. A knee right into the midsection. And Greg Valentine working the crowd here in Rio Rancho. And they're loving it.
Let me ask you something, Johnny.
Yeah, sure, shoot.
I want you to be honest with me. Do you think that Scott Bell could have put all this together?
Look, I understand where you're coming from, but let's focus on the match for right now. Back body drop for Greg Valentine. George the Animal Steele opens up with a clothesline, nails Valentine with a second. Here's a bounce off the ropes and a heel kick. Greg the Hammer Valentine taken down by George the Animal Steele just like that. And there's a DDT. The icing on the cake. And again, I don't believe it. I mean, how many times can he do the same thing?
The funny part of it is, Danny, that so far nobody's been thrown into that exposed Steele. Very lucky, I suppose. Speaking of Steele, George the Animal Steele assuming control of Greg Valentine. And Valentine trying to battle his way back into this match.
Yeah, but so far, oh yeah, he is definitely busted open. George the Animal Steele must have nailed him a beauty with that spinning heel kick. George the Animal Steele catching a knee breaker from Greg. Whoa, yeah, look at him. He's a mess. Rocking the crimson mask. Greg Valentine. Counter. George the Animal Steele takes him down with a shoulder. A chop. Oh, we're going to start trading chops. Don't do that with Greg Valentine. He's done it with some of the best of them.
Greg Valentine. Definitely one for chopping people across the chest. Only a 2 count. Him and Wahoo McDaniel, if you'll remember.
Yeah, I remember him coming in with the t-shirt. I broke Wahoo's leg. Those were great times. Greg Valentine whips George the Animal Steele out onto the floor. Looks like he's going to be having to just wait for the animal to get back inside.
The best strategy. Not wise to fight with George the Animal Steele on the outside, and yet, look, here he goes. He's going to do it anyway. Oh, a drop toe hold. And takes him down face first to the floor. We don't have any of those mats here, that's floor. And that's a little bit of rubber. And that's about it.
Referee Ricky Marino with the count at 5. Just about, yep. George the Animal Steele gets himself back inside the ring. Greg Valentine laid out face down on the outside. Finally getting to his hands and knees. The referee continuing to count. George the Animal Steele inviting Greg Valentine back inside the ring. Valentine makes it back inside and into a fireman's carry from George Steele. And a sit-out slam with a cover, but no dice. Greg Valentine powering his way out. The Animal whipped into the corner, and a clothesline from Valentine takes down George Steele. And again, going to work on the legs of George the Animal Steele. The Animal back on his feet, and an elbow from Greg Valentine. Now might be the time to put the finish on him, Greg. And again, look at this. Another leg snap. He's definitely softening him up for something. And another choke from Valentine. Time is running out. He needs to hurry up and wrap this thing up. Another uppercut from George the Animal Steele. Sets him up, head first into a DDT. The Animal rolls him over, has him into a cover here. And the 3 count, that's it. George the Animal Steele defeats Greg the Hammer Valentine.
The time was 8 minutes and 5 seconds. Your winner, George the Animal Steele.
Well, that's just the way it is. Sometimes things don't go the way we figure they're going to go, and that's exactly what happened here. George the Animal Steele winds up with a win, a surprise win, over Greg the Hammer Valentine.
I really did think that Greg Valentine would have employed the strategy of snapping the legs of George the Animal Steele over and over again in anticipation of using the figure 4 leg lock, as you said. But somehow it seems as though he never quite got around to it, and he spent far too long trying to wear down George the Animal Steele, and it was an impossible mission. It was Sisyphus rolling the stone up the hill, and eventually George the Animal Steele ended up wearing him down.
Well, that's a pretty apt description, a great wrap-up, a recap of what we just saw. More RWL Southwest Championship Wrestling right after this message.